All right, and we're back. We're sitting here in the studio today with Jeremy Sutherland. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for coming in today. We're really excited to be able to talk to you a little bit more about Crooked Beverage here in Minnesota, a little bit more about some of the stuff that you guys are doing. But first off, just to give us a little bit of background. Tell us a little bit about yourself, some of the stuff you've done prior to this, Hybrid Nation. Sort of tell me a little bit more about that background.
How far back are we going?
Oh, as far back as you want to go. I mean, we ask people sometimes, like, what's your history with cannabis? And they're like, well, when I was 14 years old. So as far back as you want.
I mean, born in Minnesota, grew up in Apple Valley, went to a couple different high schools, went to Holy Angels and St. Bernard's in St. Paul, went to Carleton College down in Northfield, and after college went and pursued some professional basketball overseas, jumped around from France, a couple different cities in France, Spain, and last little spurt in Mexico. Very cool.
Okay, awesome. So definitely more of a global perspective than I think more of our guests have generally. Were you not to like ever put you on the spot, but were you a cannabis consumer as you were traveling around the world, or what sort of was your relationship with cannabis at the time?
So I was really locked into sports as a kid, right? I had NBA dreams and all of that. And at that time, the stigma was, let's not get into drugs and alcohol, right? So I was occupied in my basketball career, and it wasn't actually until I got to Carleton when I'll never forget this. I stumbled into a dorm room, like holding a bottle of Grey Goose or something. One of my homies, Frank, he was sitting there, and I was like, "Come on, Frank, come drink with us." And he's like, "Dude, like, no, I don't drink." And Frank's had like a pile of weed on his desk and a pipe. I'm like, "Dude, you're about to do drugs, Frank," you know? And Frank sat me down, and he went over the cannabinoids and all of the, you know, how poisonous alcohol is, and supplementary that CBD and THC. I mean, we nerded out in a serious way, and I was smoking weed very shortly after that.
I love it. Well, Frank, friend of the podcast, nice shout out. That's great.
Yeah, no, Frank is the real deal. So thank you, Frank.
The interesting thing is, you know, I've heard from people who were in the NBA or NFL, and like a conservative estimate would say like 2/3 of them smoke.
I'd say that's super conservative.
Yeah, probably like 80% or more.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I was curious to hear a little bit more about that start of Crooked Beverage, because I think there's a lot of brands in Minnesota that we maybe know about today, but I can distinctly remember when your brand was announced, when sort of that rollout first started. And I'm curious to hear a little bit more about sort of what brought that all together. Tell us a little bit more about the sort of the early days of Crooked Beverage and sort of what brought those people together.
Yeah, very dynamic group of people who were all kind of 1 degree away from each other. I got a phone call, and I was like, "Hey, we want to do this thing," and you know,
who made the call?
I got on a conference call with a former partner and Ryan Winkler.
For sure.
And they kind of broke down their the concept and what they were thinking, and had heard from several different parties that I'd be a good potential startup partner to execute on some of the stuff we wanted to do. So I remember scheduling that call for 7 a.m. I was like, all right, let's get this call. Let's knock it out. It was 7 a.m. Central Time for them. So I remember pacing around my living room at 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, taking this call about potential cannabis drink.
So you're on the West Coast?
I was in Seattle at the time.
Okay.
And so I was like, yeah, 7's cool. 7 was not cool.
I know. Let's not schedule meetings before 11 a.m.
Yeah. So, no, the call went really well. And we were able to, you know, move quickly. I had a great relationship with former Carleton, some Carleton alum over at Sociable Cider, Jim and Wade.
For sure.
So that was my first phone call after a couple more phone calls with those guys to see what we wanted to do. And Wade was like, yeah, like, you know, let's do something. So that we kind of started the process there.
What's your like entrepreneurial background though? Like, why did they call you?
Like selling stuffed animals at garage sales when I was like 12.
Oh, fuck.
That's probably not what they called me, but that's definitely like I definitely have one of those backgrounds where I was, I'm just an entrepreneur, kind of hustler and I've been doing that ever since. I've got a painting company and it was my clothing brand. I manufacture for a handful of other brands and influencers and stuff like that. So, but I think it was just connecting with the community. It was a networking thing and how are we going to leverage relationships and to build a brand fast and without any money.
Mm-hmm. So having lived in California and Washington State, how would you describe the Minnesota cannabis market compared to the West Coast states that have been further along in the legalization journey?
I don't think it's specific to cannabis. It's the same way I describe the difference between Minnesota and in California or any other of these states. We have a unique vibe in Minnesota, and I think that translates the exact same way through the cannabis industry. And it's something, we are a major city, right? Mm-hmm. And we rally around, when we get opportunities to be on the big stage with our cannabis rollout, put us on that stage. There was a lot of eyes on this cannabis rollout. Oh, yeah. So I think people like yourselves did a really good job of grabbing onto that and making it, something of substance and, creating community, like creating the culture and then continuing to build and, these platforms so that we can, do our thing in a serious way.
We're here and we're from here, so we understand the Minnesota vibe, but how would you describe it to people on the West Coast? What makes us distinct? What's different about the Minnesota energy?
Well, there's a couple things, right? So it's new and exciting, right? So we know that. I was in Denver when they went full rec. I remembered, the Wiz Khalifa concert in the park, all of that. It's a time thing, right? So you go through this real high spike and then it kind of fluctuates and then it evens out, right? And so I feel like the excitement may be a little more sustained in Minnesota. Maybe it's because it took us so long. It's been sitting on that edge for so long, right? And so, but I think people always do the Minnesota nice, passive-aggressive thing. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that might exist a little bit. We're not as aggressive as on the East. Is it like in New York, right? Like it's not as aggressive, but I think there's genuine happiness and like willingness to connect and collaborate. And again, I think you guys play an important role in that too, of like creating something where it's like, hey, this is abundance mentality.
Mm-hmm. That part.
Right? Yeah. Like you've shown like no huge bias towards any brand or any individual or entity. Like you guys are just maintaining this, no, we're just a space. Mm-hmm. And everybody can exist here and everybody can ultimately be successful in whatever that looks like to each brand. And so I think there's a opportunity and like a feeling of openness that you don't, it's a little more cutthroat, right? On the West Coast.
Totally.
On the coast. And
I can totally get that.
Yeah. And so some of that passive aggressive cutthroat exists here, right? But
we're nice until we're not.
Until you're not, right? So that exists. But that exists in business, right? It is business at the end of the day for a lot of folks. So, but yeah, I think it's chill. It's community.
Yeah, that's
but what's the concept of crooked beverage? You know what I mean? Like, what does crooked mean? Because like when people hear that Ryan Winkler was involved and they think of politics, they're thinking crooked is not a good thing.
Is that what they think?
I think so. I heard some rumors like crooked. Like, is this corrupt? Is this like, what is that? What is the brand about? What does it mean?
Yeah. So,
and I'm not judging. I'm just curious.
I think, it's interesting, right? So let me go to Hybrid Nation quick, right? So what does Hybrid Nation mean? Hybrid Nation was, hybrid is the adjective describing the nation, right? So it's a hybrid. Look at us right here. right? This is diversity. This is
Yeah, I
it was
love
really
that.
about my life, right? And so, but I am I'm half black. I'm a quarter Japanese and quarter Norwegian. So I like to identify as a hybrid.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of mixed people, taking that name and saying I'm a hybrid, right? So
I feel that.
and so I'll go back to Crooked. So the people who are, involved in the political scene, they were able to grab that and say, okay, yeah, Crooked, I get it, right? And it's I'm working with a politician. 50% of the people are not going to like this guy. That's just kind of how it goes.
Probably
right?
more than that.
I don't know. 51%. Wait, is it 51%? Right. And so, I think Crooked is more of it's the crooked road. It's the crooked path. Like it's not A to B, right? And so everybody has their crooked journey and crooked story to tell. So I think with cannabis, THC infused beverages, breaking down those stigmas of whether you're a wine drinker or a soccer mom who wants to have a little THC beverage. It's like, well, it's just part of the road.
Yeah, for sure. I totally get that. And I can think of like when the brand was first announced, and I think today THC beverages are just so like accepted as part of Minnesota's cannabis industry, but it wasn't for a minute. And this was sort of it's the beverage you might go to the brewery and buy, but it's slightly crooked. It's a little bit different. And so I think, I like that there's so many ways that you can read that, either through that political lens, either through the beverage itself or through any others. That's pretty neat.
Right. You were sober until you drank the Crooked, and then you started walking crooked.
It's a little
So
crooked.
if you want to say let's get crooked, right?
Yeah.
So like you can own that.
Yeah.
Love it.
What do your consumers say about the name?
Wow. Hi, Steve. Well, so we just rolled out, started our national rollout. So I would say, do our consumers look at Crooked in Texas and think of Ryan Winkler? Probably not.
Yeah.
Totally fair.
Not at all.
Well, and I would venture probably most of the cannabis industry, maybe like the people doing the business might, but I think 99% of the consumers aren't going to look at that product and go, oh, the former speaker of that. No, they're looking at that and going, it's a cannabis beverage, 3 milligram serving, sort of looking at the flavor and profile. That's
No, it's interesting, right? So, and you think about names because we've gone through tons of exercises, and like branding is this $1 billion like industry marketing branding, right? And so you just look at names, right? Like Google, like what's a Google, right? And
It's a deep dive internet search.
yeah, right. But it's like, what's an Amazon, right? And so when it comes to the name, I think it's less important the name and more of the feeling you get when you touch the can or see the packaging, pick up the box, right? And so I think those are the things that we've been pretty successful on as far as just our brand appeal.
for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of what my question was, like, not necessarily what's the meaning of the name Crooked, which most people are not into politics. They don't want to even talk about it, let alone begin to understand it. But like, I'm trying to understand all these brands. Like, what is your brand identity? Like, what are your values? Like, you have this hat that says, "In diversity we trust," and you're talking about hybrid nation, which that resonates deeply with me. I love that. So I'm just trying to understand, like, the identity of all these brands that are in the Minnesota market. And your brand is a national brand, right?
Yeah,
But it started right here.
about 6 weeks ago. Yeah.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
How does that feel?
It's like everything else. You start off with a problem, and then you do a thing, and you get more problems.
Yeah, more money, more problems.
Yeah, no, it's good though. It feels like we're doing some things right, and so it just feels good to, there's some validation in some of the stuff you do, right? And it's like it's a huge, super packed market, and so these little wins, these new accounts, it's like, okay, we're choosing you when we know there's 1,000 brands, and so to be in, and go back to the abundance thing, right? It's like, not in competition. Like, I don't need to be the best brand. Like, there's 20 different sodas making $1 billion, right? And it's like, we just want to be on the shelf.
I feel that.
Yeah.
Well, how have your past experiences in the apparel and entertainment industry like allowed your brand to grow faster and be more accepted faster? Has that helped? Has that experience helped?
I think there's some experience on the entrepreneur side, on like really being in the dirt. Like, we've already gone through a bunch of stuff, as a young brand in 1 year. You're going to continually get to those points of like, okay, this is boom or bust time, right? And then you get to the next level and like, okay, we're back to boom or bust again. And like that happens. And so I think just to be able to try to weather that, and like from a team standpoint too, working with other people, and then, sure, there's some relationships nationally that I've been able to
Leverage.
Yeah, leverage. But yeah, there's a lot of just plug and play where like this THC beverage will add value to certain people's venues or parties, or there's partnerships, sponsorships that that we'll be able to call on.
I heard you have a celebrity brother. Is that right?
I finally had to start calling him a celebrity. He's won enough.
Yeah, that
TV
must be
shows.
awkward as a sibling.
Well, no, it's just like the younger brother. Like, he's only 3 years older, right? So it's like it was the younger brother battle.
Okay.
And
Are you the oldest?
No, he's the oldest.
Oh, he's the oldest.
But like, I was the little brother who wanted to be the cool brother.
Okay.
Did you want to use this opportunity and just like bring him down a peg, just like say something really insulting? Or no, just kidding.
I can't anymore. Like, I can't. Like, I gave that up. I remember when we were. It was his Iron Chef when he won Iron Chef, and so there was a watch party at his restaurant for Iron Chef, and I remember being in there and I was just watching him, and then he won, and I was like, damn, he's for sure the cool brother now. It's over.
Yeah, that was a big moment for him.
That was big. Yeah. So, and no, he has a classic chef story. He's been in the kitchen, been with the fire, making $0 for a really long time, long days, hungover morning, like all the chef stuff. And then for him to like do that thing, right? And then similar to like the business concept, like, okay, you do a thing, but you have to like keep doing more things. You won Iron Chef, but okay.
Can't sit on that.
Now you just started. So I think he's just done a really good job of he's just doing his thing, man. He's a special dude.
Has he been very supportive and influential in your entrepreneurial journey?
Big time. Yeah. I mean, I can't walk onto an airplane without a flight attendant or somebody like saying something about my hat, or literally watching the Food Network and they're like, is this you? Like, so yeah, so it's been cool. So it's definitely, he's super supportive of the brand and everything that I do, obviously, and however he can help.
That's
cool.
sad.
So tell us a little bit more about the thought that went into the product itself. I think one thing that really separates Crooked from some of the other beverages on the shelf is that you guys really settled on that 3 milligram per serving. I think you see a lot of people that are really pushing to either that full 10, saying this is what we're allowed to do, so we might as well do it, or sort of settling more around like that 5 point. What was the thought behind 3? And tell us a little bit more about like what went into the creation of those beverages.
On the dosage side, prior to taking the first sip of our sample product, I hadn't had a beverage since I was living in Denver when they went full adult use, and I had a small can of what appeared to be a small dosage of THC, and it was like 200 milligrams, and then I was like, I'll just have half, and so that was the last of my edible experience, literally until the day I tried. All right, so I was already like, okay, low dose market. Yeah, this sounds good. I can get back on this. But I think what I was excited about, what we were all excited about and still excited about, is the 3 milligram consumer. Like, I really think that the consumer who wants to try or start trying 3 milligrams, or who settles on 3 milligrams, those are probably going to be the ones that's going to take a little more activation energy to get them to market, right? Those may be the people, the boomers who used to smoke weed when they were 14 and then stopped because of kids, stigma, work. My mom is that person, right? She was a flight attendant for 46 years, right?
Shout out to her.
Come on, Mom. So she smoked weed when she was in middle school. I don't know, maybe high school. Middle school, Mom, that would be crazy. Anyway, she smoked weed when she was a kid, stopped cold turkey when she was 18 years old and got a job with Northwest. And, now, and she's also a rule follower. Like, she's not breaking the rule. Like, her job was to make sure all the rules were followed so nobody got hurt, right? For 46 years. So,
raise your seat.
Right. Yeah.
Checking for the seat.
Check all that, right? She had a checklist and she followed the rules. And as soon as it was legal, she was back on. And so now that's just like a cool, like, that's cool, edgy, fun. That's her getting to like live again and experience, and so there's some nostalgia behind it. But I think that's a big, part of the,
It allows people like that to get a little crooked.
Without getting bent.
Are you gonna invoice me after this? So yeah, I think that's a cool part of the market that I'm excited about.
Very cool.
Has Ryan Winkler consumed any cannabis?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because I remember there was a point.
I don't even know if I can say that. Yeah, I can say that.
It's legal,
It's
right?
legal.
Yes, yeah, we can say that.
Is it legal?
Yeah.
But I remember for a long time he was like, "I've never tried cannabis."
Yeah.
And it was like him and Melissa Hartman, they claimed to be the only members in the legislature who never tried cannabis. I was like, this is interesting.
You know what? He's a 3 milligram, like he's in that 3 milligram market, right?
Yeah.
So like,
No, I respect it.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
a lightweight with the edibles.
yeah.
I
So
mean, I'll
like, I
smoke
think
you
that's
under the table,
he's a
but-
perfect example, right? He's a 3 milligram guy for sure.
We're really excited to announce a new segment on our show, which is called Getting Stoned with Ryan Winkler. We're just going to all hang out with... No, just kidding.
I think I got put a crooked banner up, and I think we can figure it out.
Perfect. All right, there we go.
Just get a bonfire and bring some mushrooms and just
You just
Go
turned
crazy.
it up.
There we go. There we go.
hey. So tell us a little bit more about your working relationship with Ryan Winkler, because you said some things off air that I think that our listeners, our viewers need to hear. Because it sounds like he's been very equity focused
Yeah, for sure.
in real life outside of the legislature.
Outside of, okay, sure. No, I mean, he just from like the inception story of the phone call that I got, when it came to putting this thing together, he called me separately, and said, look, like, I'm not starting this company with 3 old rich white dudes. Like, that's not what I'm going to do when I focus, when I put so much work and focus and looking at the equity piece of the bill and all of it. He said, it's not something I'm comfortable with.
Right.
And so, I said, well, that dude's a good salesman. Like, that sounds good.
At 7 a.m.?
Yeah, 5 a.m.
5 a.m., my bad.
Yeah.
West Coast time.
Yeah, sounds good, but, how is he going to walk that walk moving forward as we start, bringing people in and stuff like that. And we did a small family and friends raise, and my founding partners have great networks with some wealthy people, and
Commas.
yeah, they got some commas, and it could have potentially been a really easy thing for them to make a phone call and get it filled. Yeah. And I presented to Ryan. I said, look, like, I don't have one friend that I can call that's going to give us $1 million, but I got a whole bunch of friends with $25,000 or $50,000, and so I would like a little precedence at the cap table to bring on my people and keep this thing diverse. And Ryan was
in diversity we trust.
Yeah, man, and he was he was 100% on board with that and like championed that with my team. Not that anybody else on my team was opposed to it, but that was focusing in it, and we did it. And so hopefully we're gonna make my people some money.
That's what's up. So yeah, I just didn't want to put it out there like Ryan Winkler is a villain.
No, it's crazy because people ask me, my friends who aren't like, they just ask me what my team and who's who, and I just always describe. I pay attention to politics, but I was out of the country. I've been living in California. Like, Ryan Winkler didn't mean much to me, you know? And so I got friends who asked me what it's like working with him and whatnot. And I said, he's like a character out of a movie. Like, he's a Harvard grad politician attorney. Like, he's like out of a TV series, and he's just real. He does what he says. And, you know, he's a good dude. From everything that I've experienced with him, you know, and we've gone through some shit with our founding members and stuff like that. And like, he's been the most up and up dude on the team.
Yeah, we couldn't afford to not record that.
Yeah. So, no, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you said offline, like, he's always checking to make sure you're good.
Yeah, no, he definitely, he looks out for me. We have conversations often that just, it makes you feel good. So,
yeah, and like the Minnesota Cannabis College, we exist to, you know, advocate for equity, to create opportunities for people who don't have a bunch of commas, you know, who don't have a depth of, you know, a network that can just fund whatever they want to do. So I appreciate that you're bringing your people to the table and creating opportunities for people like us. Yeah.
That's what it's all about, opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Well, truly, thank you so much for coming on today. It was really exciting to be able to hear a little bit more about your background, hearing a little bit more about Crooked Beverage, hearing a little bit more about sort of what separates you guys from some of those other products on the shelf. Just sort of wrapping up today, for people that want to hear a little bit more about your product, maybe try it, where would you recommend that they go to learn a little bit more about it?
CrookedBeverage.com, Instagram at Crooked Beverage. We're doing tastings all over the city, liquor store near you.
Sweet.
I got one more question for Jeremy.
Ooh, ask away.
Jeremy, you're a big golfer.
I golf.
You golf a lot.
I golf.
How does the golf community take to your product, and what are your hopes for the golf community to adopt cannabis as an option on the golf course?
It's a good question, but I don't think it's any different than every cannabis community where there's a prohibition or a stigma. Everyone fucking smokes weed on the golf course.
That's right. They do, right?
That's right. And so it's the exact same thing. Everyone fucking smokes weed here. Can I say fucking?
Yeah.
You can say fucking damn shit, all of the things.
Okay. So
I get that, right? Gambling is illegal at Bushwick, sir, right? Like there are rules on the golf course, but people still break the rules. Do you think low-dose hemp-derived beverages is like a nice way to bring cannabis into the golf community?
Yeah, it's the perfect way, right? And so when you talk about whether you're pro or what, like, you have to respect other people's space, right? And so a perfect way to get into that, respecting your space, when I get paired up with some older couple and they're out doing their date night thing, and it's me and my homie, like, I don't want to be in my cart doing this, you know, and you just don't, like, out of respect, you just, you know, I don't want to have a joint blowing and the smoke's blowing in their face. But if I got a can and I go up, I'm like, what's up, Bill? Like, shake his hand, I'm drinking this, and he has his little Miller Lite, like, that creates, you know, that's a good stepping stone to breaking down the stigma. Exactly. And then by hole 7, I'm like, he's like, what are you drinking? I was like, oh, this is THC. He's like, oh, really? I didn't know. Let me try one.
Right.
And now we got Bill drinking THC beverages.
That's huge.
So yeah, a great question. But I love that and like Waste Management this year is a really good example of that, right? So, you know, Waste Management, they had to stop serving alcohol at noon. At noon, they shut down the unlimited alcohol.
It's the biggest party golf tournament of the year. It's like in the Phoenix area, right around the time of the Super Bowl. It's just a drunk fest.
Yeah, and well, it's turned into a serious drunk, right? And so, like, could we benefit from some THC consumption there?
Right.
Probably.
Some national distributors getting
involved. So they
involved.
stop the drinking at noon?
Oh,
so that means there's a lot of drinking before noon.
Oh, yeah.
God damn.
You know, gates open at 8 and, you know, it's an all-day event.
Sloppy.
They shut it down.
That's wild.
You know, is there room for it? Obviously. Like, you know. And
it's a safer choice.
Yeah, no different than any other area of stigma being upheld by the powers that be.
Yeah. We just have heard a couple times on the podcast already this year of brands wanting to break into that country club type environment in Minnesota. There's a lot of golf courses.
Yeah, there's some
a lot
golf
of
courses
opportunity.
taking
Yeah.
THC beverages right
Yeah,
now.
that's good.
Private courses too. So.
Are y'all looking to get into the adult use market?
Crooked Beverage, no.
No? Okay, just staying in the hemp-derived lane.
Yep.
I love it.
That's cool.
Well, truly, thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it, Jeremy. We look forward to chatting with you again very soon.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll be right back.
Appreciate it.